Octopus. Octopuses are among the most intelligent invertebrates on Earth. They solve puzzles, use tools, recognize individual humans, and escape seemingly impossible enclosures. They have 9 brains and can independently control each of their 8 arms. And they live 1 to 5 years. That's it. Most species die shortly after mating. Males wander aimlessly after reproduction, stop eating, and deteriorate until they die. Females guard their eggs obsessively, refusing to eat for months while fanning water over them. When the eggs hatch, the mother dies, often within days. She literally starves herself to death protecting offspring she'll never meet. This process is genetically programmed and unavoidable. Even in captivity, with unlimited food and no predators, they follow the same death sentence. Scientists call it senescence. The optic gland triggers a hormonal cascade after mating that essentially commands the body to self-destruct. Remove the gland and they live longer. But in nature, every octopus dies young, right after achieving a level of intelligence that most animals never reach. Brilliant, curious, problem-solving creatures with an expiration date stamped at birth. Elephant in captivity. Wild elephants walk up to 50 kilometers a day across savannas and forests, live in complex family groups led by matriarchs who remember water sources from 60 years ago, and mourn their dead by returning to bones and touching them with their trunks. Captive elephants stand in concrete enclosures the size of a parking lot. The psychological damage is measurable and devastating. Captive elephants develop stereotypic behaviors, repetitive, purposeless movements like head bobbing, swaying, and pacing the same path for hours. These are recognized signs of severe psychological distress, essentially the animal equivalent of a mental breakdown. Their feet develop crippling arthritis and infections from standing on hard surfaces. Wild elephants rarely have foot problems because they walk on soft earth. In zoos, foot disease is the leading cause of euthanasia. The average lifespan of a zoo elephant is roughly half that of a wild one. They form deep social bonds and grieve separation. Mothers separated from calves have been documented screaming for days. They remember trauma for decades. Male anglerfish. The male anglerfish has one of the most disturbing life cycles in the animal kingdom. Males are born tiny, sometimes less than a centimeter long, with no digestive system that functions long term. Their sole purpose is to find a female. If they don't find one quickly, they starve and die. If they do find a female, what happens next is worse. The male bites into the female's body and never lets go. His jaw fuses with her skin. His circulatory system merges with hers. His eyes dissolve. His internal organs dissolve. His brain dissolves. He becomes nothing more than a pair of gonads permanently attached to the female's body, providing sperm on demand for the rest of her life. Some females have been found with multiple absorbed males attached to them simultaneously. The male ceases to exist as an independent organism. He becomes a parasitic reproductive organ with no consciousness, no autonomy, and no identity. He essentially dies as an individual while his body continues functioning as a component of someone else. Kakapo. The kakapo is a large, flightless nocturnal parrot from New Zealand, and it is spectacularly bad at surviving. It evolved without any ground predators, so it never developed fear. When threatened, instead of running, it freezes and hopes to blend in. This works against 0 modern predators. When humans introduced cats, rats, and stoats to New Zealand, kakapos were nearly wiped out because they would sit perfectly still while a cat walked up and ate them. Males attract mates by inflating air sacs and producing a deep booming call that carries for kilometers, but also announces their exact location to every predator in the area. They only breed every 2 to 4 years and only when a specific tree produces enough fruit. They live up to 90 years, spending most of that time alone. By 1995, only 51 kakapos remained on Earth. Every single surviving kakapo has a name and is individually tracked by researchers. The population has slowly climbed to around 250 through intensive conservation, but one disease outbreak could erase the entire species overnight. Captive orca. Wild orcas swim over 150 kilometers per day, dive to 300 meters, live in tight-knit family pods with unique dialects, and have lifespans comparable to humans. In captivity at marine parks, They're kept in tanks roughly 10,000 times smaller than their natural range. The psychological effects are devastating and visible. Captive male orcas develop collapsed dorsal fins, occurring in less than 1% of wild males but in virtually 100% of captive ones. They develop stereotypic behaviors, grinding their teeth on concrete walls and metal gates until the enamel is gone. Multiple captive orcas have attacked and killed their trainers. Tilikum, a captive male at SeaWorld, was involved in 3 human deaths. Wild orcas have never killed a human. Captive orcas die decades younger than wild ones. Wild females can live past 80. Captive females rarely make it past 30. They're separated from their mothers for transfer between parks. Mother orcas in the wild stay with their sons for life. The screams of mothers separated from calves have been recorded and analyzed. They match distress vocalizations associated with grief. Proboscis monkey. The male proboscis monkey has an enormous, drooping nose that grows throughout his entire life, eventually hanging below his mouth. Scientists believe the nose amplifies mating calls and serves as a visual signal of fitness to females. Bigger nose, better genes. But the reality is less glamorous. These monkeys live in the mangrove swamps of Borneo, one of the most rapidly disappearing habitats on Earth. Deforestation for palm oil plantations has destroyed over 50% of their habitat in the last 40 years. Their population has dropped by more than 50% in a single generation. They can't survive outside their specific mangrove and riverside forest habitat. They're one of the few primates that can swim, using it to cross rivers and escape predators like crocodiles, but they often fail. Crocodiles actively hunt them at river crossings. Males that can't attract females with their calls sometimes sit alone at the edges of groups for years. They have pot bellies from fermenting leaves in specialized stomach chambers, can't digest fruit without getting dangerously bloated, and their habitats are being bulldozed for cookies and shampoo ingredients. Worker bee. A worker honeybee lives approximately 6 weeks during summer. In that time, she'll perform every job in the hive in sequence: cleaning cells, feeding larvae, building comb, guarding the entrance, and finally foraging. The foraging phase kills her. She literally works herself to death. Her wings shred from use. Her body depletes its protein reserves. She becomes too worn out to fly home and dies alone in a field. She will never reproduce. Worker bees are all female but sterile. Only the queen lays eggs. If a worker develops functioning ovaries, other workers detect it through pheromones and either force her to stop or kill her. Her entire existence is sacrificed for a colony that replaces her without noticing. She produces about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in her lifetime. The queen can live 5 years. Workers are disposable. In winter, workers that hatch last longer, about 6 months, because they cluster around the queen to keep her warm. Workers on the outer edge of the cluster rotate inward to survive, but some freeze to death in the process. Panda. Giant pandas spend 14 hours a day eating bamboo because bamboo is almost nutritionally worthless. They're classified as carnivores but eat almost exclusively plants, a dietary choice their digestive system never properly adapted to. They lack the gut bacteria to efficiently break down cellulose, so they extract only about 17% of the nutrients from what they eat. They compensate by eating up to 38 kilograms of bamboo daily. Female pandas are fertile for only 24 to 36 hours per year, 1 day. If the male doesn't show up, or shows up and isn't interested, or shows up and the female rejects him, that's it until next year. Males in the wild sometimes can't find females because their habitat is so fragmented. In captivity, pandas are notoriously terrible at mating. Zoos have tried showing them videos of other pandas mating. It sometimes works. When cubs are born, they're absurdly tiny, about 1/900th of the mother's weight, blind, hairless, and completely helpless. Mothers occasionally roll over and accidentally crush them. A bear that can't digest its own food breeds once a year at best and sometimes kills its offspring by accident. Kiwi. The kiwi is a flightless bird the size of a chicken that lays an egg roughly 6 times the size you'd expect for its body. The egg takes up about 20% of the female's body cavity. Imagine a human giving birth to a 4-year-old. The egg is so large that in the final days before laying, the female can barely eat because it compresses her stomach. X-rays of pregnant kiwis show the egg filling nearly the entire abdomen, pushing organs aside. After laying this enormous egg, the female leaves. The male incubates it for about 80 days, barely eating, losing up to a third of his body weight. The chick hatches fully feathered and essentially independent, walking out of the nest within a week. It receives almost no parental care. Kiwis are nocturnal, nearly blind, and rely on nostrils at the tip of their beak to smell food in the soil. They evolved without mammalian predators and have no effective defenses. Introduced cats, dogs, and stoats kill about 95% of kiwi chicks before they reach adulthood. Mayfly. Adult mayflies live for 24 hours or less. Some species live as little as 5 minutes in their adult form. They spend 1 to 2 years as aquatic larvae, then emerge, molt into their adult form, and have hours to find a mate before they die. Adult mayflies have no functional mouths. They cannot eat. Their digestive systems are filled with air to make them lighter for flight. Their sole purpose as adults is to reproduce and die. They emerge in massive synchronized swarms, sometimes billions at once, that show up on weather radar. The swarms are so dense they cause traffic accidents, make roads slippery with crushed bodies, and pile up in drifts. Within hours, the mating is done and the ground is covered in dead and dying mayflies. The females drop their eggs into water and die immediately after. The males die wherever they land. Some species have a subadult stage that lasts minutes before the final molt into breeding form, meaning they molt, fly, mate, and die in a single evening. An entire adult existence compressed into a few desperate hours. Seahorse. Male seahorses carry the pregnancy, not the females. The female deposits eggs into the male's brood pouch, where he fertilizes and carries them for 2 to 4 weeks before giving birth to hundreds or thousands of tiny, fully formed seahorses. That sounds charming until you learn the survival rate. Less than 1% of seahorse babies survive to adulthood. Most are eaten within hours of being born. The male gives birth and the babies are immediately on their own. No parental care, no protection. They drift as plankton, getting eaten by everything. Many seahorse species are monogamous, returning to the same partner each day for a morning greeting ritual where they change colors and dance together. If one partner dies, the surviving seahorse sometimes refuses to mate again. Their habitats, primarily seagrass beds and coral reefs, are being destroyed at alarming rates. Seahorses are also heavily harvested for traditional medicine, with an estimated 150 million dried seahorses sold annually. A devoted parent, whose offspring almost all die, whose partner may leave them in permanent mourning, and whose home is disappearing. Albatross. Albatrosses mate for life, and their courtship takes years. Young albatrosses spend up to a decade learning elaborate dances before finding a partner. Once bonded, pairs return to the same nesting site year after year, for decades. They can live past 70 years with the same mate. The depressing part is what's happening to them. Albatrosses are being killed by longline fishing at devastating rates. Hooks baited with squid attract the birds who dive for the bait and get hooked. An estimated 100,000 albatrosses die this way every year. Plastic pollution is even worse. Albatross parents feed their chicks by regurgitating fish and squid from their stomachs, but their stomachs are increasingly full of plastic. Bottle caps, lighters, fishing line, fragments. Chicks on Midway Atoll are found dead with stomachs packed with plastic. Zero food. Parents fly thousands of kilometers to bring back what they think is food, and it's killing their babies. Some adults spend months at sea only to return and find their chick dead. They'll sit beside the body for days before leaving.